Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 274. Today, we have a different episode, another on-location episode for you. While Mike and I were down in Atlanta, we sat down with the crew at Highland Woodworking and went over a bunch of stuff. Talked to them about their legendary Woodslicer bandsaw blade, the history of Highland Woodworking, how it got started, and teaching and Taya Frid and President Jimmy Carter, all sorts of things came up. It's a very cool conversation. And they didn't ask me to say this, but I was just on their website, and on the right-hand side, there's a link, flip through our catalog, and I just spent about 20 minutes flipping through their catalog, and it's pretty exhaustive, this catalog. It's fantastic, and not only that, the way it works, you can click on an item number and get brought directly to the page for that item on the website. It's slick, and I know a lot of work goes into that, and I just want to applaud them for that effort. And I think y'all should check it out too, because I do miss flipping through catalogs from time to time, and this felt like the best of both worlds to me. So this episode is going to start off with us chatting with the folks at Highland, one of the owners, Chris Bagby, and his daughter, Molly Bagby, who kind of runs the website and e-commerce end of the business. After that, we're going to catch up with Vic. It's been a little bit too long since we've heard from Vic, and Vic is on the move again. And I thought it would be worth just checking in with Vic and seeing how yet another move goes for him. All right, on with the episode. So we are here at Highland Woodworking in Atlanta. So this is the Highland area? Is
Virginia Highlands.
Virginia Highlands is what it's called.
Yes.
It's an incredible little neighborhood. Really cute.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting, I've heard about the store forever, thinking it was this big sprawling thing sort of at the end of a giant parking lot, like a Home Depot or something. And to be in this neighborhood, getting dropped off by the Uber, it's like, yeah, I think I'm in the right spot. So.
And there's a river behind us right now.
There's not usually a river.
it's yeah. So if anyone hears rain, because I'm not able to denoise it, that's what's going on. It downpoured a little bit ago, and now the street is flooded, but we're okay. We're on high ground. So, Chris, you started Highland Woodworking.
Sharon and I did.
Okay.
She was a big part of the beginning.
Okay.
And the whole way through today.
When was that?
Well, as the story goes, we live right around the corner over here, 5 minutes walk from here. And we were pushing the Kelly and the baby carriage down this sidewalk. And we saw the for rent sign in what is now a bookstore, but back then had been a junk store, and before that had been a karate studio.
Oh, okay.
And we had been longing to start our own business because we worked for another company, another hardware store at the time, and we felt it was time. I was 28, Sharon was 26, so we decided to rent that space and go for it, and we did. 6 years later, we moved into this space. We had bought this property about 3 years after we opened up to begin with, and raised the building except for the brick walls and the concrete foundation, and built this little piece of architecture that fits in well with the neighborhood.
It really does. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did it start as like woodworking supply?
No, we were a literal mom and pop corner hardware store.
Okay.
And to some extent, we still are. Physically, we are. We're on the corner right next to the fire station across the street. But we have that corner hardware store mentality. We didn't think we'd ever be in e-commerce. But we did. I did know that we would have a catalog, and we had our first catalog in 1981. But all this time, we were still selling plumbing, electrical, gardening, paint, and that was bringing in a couple of hundred customers a day. Now we have far fewer because we're specialized. When we did cut over to being woodworking only, It was a big change, but I think our employees liked it. They didn't have to mess with plumbing fittings anymore.
Or making paint.
Right,
Yep.
mixing paint. So there's been that evolution, and we're pretty stable. I don't know that we'll grow anymore physically because we're kind of in a landlocked situation. We have at this building that was originally 4,500 square feet, and we enlarged it to 13,000 square feet in '94, and we have a 3,000-foot warehouse out back. So we keep all of it crammed full of woodworking tools, and we stock everything we sell pretty much. So
You'd
there's
be amazed at how many saw stops are back there.
saw stops. Yeah, our Festool room is pretty large also right now. We've been stockpiling it as it's available, trying to combat the supply chain issues that have been troubling us for the last year or so.
So hint, hint, if you haven't been able to get something, Highland might be your place. So you had mentioned e-commerce, and I mean, Molly, that's a lot of what you do. I know you do pretty much everything.
So I started in 2010. I had been doing various things here and there, cashiering when I was in high school, random filing. I took professional naps as a 3-year-old. We're kind of close to where we are now, right around the corner, which is no longer part of our property. So I've been here since I was a baby, literally, growing up here. And now I kind of concentrated in admin and marketing in college. So I used that. And since being one of the younger generations, I started our Highland Woodworking social media accounts and ran those for a bit. And then I started doing Wood News Online, which was our online newsletter that would come out every month, and then various marketing materials. And now I am the e-commerce manager. So every order that is placed online goes through my eye or passes my eyes. And we're a small enough business that I am able to look at every order. I see how many customers are ordering on a daily basis and how many of those customers are ordering on a weekly or monthly basis. And I process all of the orders and then send them to our shipping department. And I do e-commerce.
Is shipping done on site?
Yes, our shipping department is in the back of our store. Phil Colson, one of our longtime employees since 1985, he works here Monday through Friday. Well, Monday through Thursday. He used to work Monday through Friday, but I'm sure you can imagine someone who's been here since 1985 is wanting to retire at some point. So now he's working 4 days a week.
That's his retirement.
But he literally takes all of our orders and knows where everything is in the store and is able to pick everything for your online order very quickly, since it's very, very well mapped out store, but it's also a map in his head. And he's very quick and efficient. And we get your order out to you usually the same day that you place it.
So, and you did confirm that when I couldn't figure out how to put in the secret code on the back of the American Express card, it was you who was emailing me back saying, no, that's not the right one. Yeah. So we've been buying a lot from here because you just really seem to have everything in stock. And it's, for the fine woodworking shop, we like, buying from family-owned businesses when we can. And we've been ordering a lot of stuff from Atlanta. Mike's been okaying all the orders.
I don't even look. I just sign it. It's good.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I have something to add to the inventory
please
thing.
do.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
So my mom, Sharon Bagby, has also worn a lot of hats throughout the time of her tenure here. She actually retired, both my parents retired in 1994. Was it?
Me in 99.
And she raised me during the majority of my childhood. But then in 2008, when the recession hit, they both came back to kind of revitalize the store after the economy kind of collapsed. And so Sharon has been working here ever since. pretty much nonstop. She's maybe had 2 one-week vacations here and there, maybe a few extra days here and there as well. But she's literally the spine behind what keeps Highland Woodworking running, and is definitely how we have all of our inventory in stock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of the 2008 recession, the last few years have been a little bit tumultuous for a lot of people. We were wondering, like, well, people aren't going out and buying magazines anymore. What's going to happen? And it turned out a lot of people came into the craft and ended up coming online and becoming members. What did you see in terms of the people who shop here? I'm guessing you probably weren't open for a while, but your online presence was probably still good. Have you seen a change in the people buying more or less, or different people coming into the craft?
Are you comparing it to 2008 or the pandemic?
No, just what the pandemic did to your business.
Right. Well, we actually locked our doors, the retail store doors, for 15 months from March 2020 through into May of 2021.
Wow.
Really to protect our staff. It's been amazing how long people have worked here. People have made a career out of working for Highland Woodworking. 2 guys, our 2 oldest guys,
Phil,
in their late 70s.
Mentioned.
Yeah, Phil and Sydney. They've been here for 37 years.
Wow.
And there are probably about 10 other people who are either still here or have worked here that have been here for 20, 25 years. And naturally, that means a lot of us are old. And we do have, I think half the employees are 60 and over at this point. 5 of us are 70s. So we locked the doors just to protect them, and so we could focus well on the e-commerce, which took a sudden lift. We didn't have to switch to e-commerce. We had already been doing it really since the mid-90s.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
And that was our best year ever, really, was 2020 in terms of our sales activity. In fact, it was like Christmas all year long.
Holiday level sales the whole year.
Wow. And I mean, yeah, because everybody's stuck at home trying to find something to do, and just a lot of people took up woodworking, we found, and it's great, and they're sticking with it. So it's been a resurgence, right?
Well, I feel like woodworking is also one of those hobbies. I'm not a woodworker myself. I've delved into it a bit, but when I did Wood News, I used to write the Show Us Your Shop column, where we got woodworkers to submit their pictures of their workshop. And a lot of woodworkers, I would say, tend to see their workshop as a place to escape. So since a lot of families were always together at the beginning of the pandemic, I imagine a lot of woodworkers found a lot of escape time in their shops.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when you think of Highland, or when I think of Highland, one thing that I do think of immediately is the Woodslicer blades. Can you give us, because I can't think of anyone else who has like a blade that is just so universally recommended as Woodslicer. It's just, well, what are you doing? Have you tried just putting a Woodslicer on it? That's universal, I think. How did that come about?
Well, we were really fortunate back in the late 80s and early 90s, somewhere in there. We hooked up with a company that was already making blades, and collaborated with them and came up with one that filled a need that most other blades didn't really do very well at. People have had horrible experiences trying to resaw on their bandsaws. And the blade that we came up with is a 1/2-inch blade, and we later added a 3/4 inch width as well, because the people with larger saws wanted a bigger blade. But they both perform similarly on almost any saw. What makes it unique is, well, several things. It's thinner, for one. It's 22 thousandths instead of the usual 25 thousandths, makes it about 12% thinner. It has very little set to the teeth. The kerf is about 1/32 of an inch. So it's almost like you put a bigger motor on your bandsaw as soon as you put a wood slicer on as the blade. They have a exceptional sharpening process and some impulse hardening that makes the teeth stay sharp longer. The weld is unique. I think it's called a flash butt upset weld. I couldn't tell you what that does.
That sounds like a punk band.
It does. But it allows us to give an unconditional guarantee against breakage at the weld. And occasionally they do break under certain circumstances, I suppose, that are beyond our control. And we just replace the blade at that point. Let's see, what else is carbon manganese spring steel in the bodies. It has twice the tensile strength of an ordinary bandsaw blade. So it's all of this turns into or contributes to a blade that cuts quieter. It makes a very smooth, straight cut. It not really good for curves. It's really made to just take a thick board and make it thinner as many times as you want. We've successfully taken 10-inch boards and 10-inch wide boards and made a 1/32 inch piece of veneer. It's almost a flawless blade. I don't understand. Well, I can understand why people like it, and it's our best-selling product. Over the years? Yes, it's been a massive success, and the sales are still growing because people hear about them from their friends and try them out and like them. We have probably close to 1,000 testimonials that people have sent in unsolicited. So we're real happy that the blade has continued here for about 30 years and going forward, maybe 30 more.
I remember when I bought my first bandsaw, like one thing that I wanted to make sure it could handle a wood slicer because I had just heard so much about it. I was like, okay, can it handle a 1/2-inch blade? Okay, I'll buy that one. So yeah, and we've got one on the Rikon at the shop. Works incredibly well, and it really is a thin curve. I don't know if I realized that because I have a different blade on my saw at home, and I was doing some resawing the other day, and I noticed, I was like, wait, this is a much thinner curve than my blade that I'm used to. So
and a lot smoother cut as well.
Yeah.
I switched over probably 3 years ago because my saw it's like a 17-inch bandsaw, which was kind of weird. So I always bought from the same source because I knew they had my exact size. And then I noticed you had it as well. It's like, yes, there we go.
Well, we basically offer custom sizes if there's a size that you have and you need for your bandsaw, and we don't list it on our website or in our catalog. We'll order it for you. It'll take
5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, about 6 weeks turnaround. And so there's really no excuse not to have a good experience resawing.
This feels like a store that you really listen to your customers. And like your customers might have a good relationship with you and start saying, hey, you should start carrying this. But because there is, quite honestly, you have 3 different brands of rasps. Like what? You have 3 brands of rasps? That's unheard of. But you go out of your way to make sure you've got the rasp that, because it's on a triangular little station there. And I was walking around and I was like, oh, Aru, or however you say it. Aru. Okay, thank you. And then I walked around, there was Nicholson. And then I walked around, there was another one.
Iwasaki.
Okay. And I was just flabbergasted because any woodworking store I've ever been in, you'll find one flavor, but you must really listen to your customers.
Customer service is definitely a big part of our company, and it's been about the customers ever since the beginning. We're really big on woodworking education. And so when our employees are talking to a customer on the phone, they're really helping to educate the customer with any question that they might have. And before the pandemic started, we had woodworking classes, and we're very big on education here. And we listen to our customers. From a customer service perspective, I answer all of the customer service emails that come through. And being the daughter of the owners, I definitely feel like we need to show our customers the utmost service and respect, and also connect with them on a good level. Mm-hmm. And so I love talking to our customers and getting to know them and what they want, what they like, what they don't like.
Behind us is a picture of one of your customers at one of, was this upstairs? Or so behind us is a photograph of Taya Fred at a workbench demonstrating a router technique and just beaming. 2 rows back is President Jimmy Carter. Has he been in here?
Well, that's an interesting story in itself. It was in March of 1981, which was right after he went out of office. He came to the store. Actually, his advance crew came the day before to look around and make sure it was safe and no lumber was going to fall on him.
What's that phone call like?
Oh, no, they were here in person with their little earpieces and the Secret Service group. And 12 of them came with him on the day he came, the first day at the time he came. I was showing him around the store. We were showing him around the store. And he saw that we had classes, and he said, do you ever have Tay Frid come teach seminar here? And I said, well, no, we've not approached him. I mean, we'd been in business 3 years at that point. We were still getting the educational program underway. He said, well, if you ever had Tay Frid here, I would come to that class. So the next day I started typing out a little letter. Said, dear Mr. Frid, President Jimmy Carter was in the store yesterday and said he would like to come to one of your seminars if you would hold it here. Are you interested? And of course he was, and that was a monumental time for us to have Tay Frid, sort of the father or the grandfather of woodworking education in the United States. And he came for 11 more years. Every spring he would come teach a weekend seminar here. President Carter, that was the only class he came to, but he would come in about every 6 months. The Carter Center, his library is about 1.5 miles from here, right on Highland Avenue, right off of Highland Avenue. And so he would come in and buy some glue and buy a book or two. He was a woodworker like a lot of other people were. And he said he had been doing it since his Navy days in the early 50s. He made all the furniture in the house that he and Rosalind moved into while they were in the Navy. So it was great getting to know him and have him pop in unannounced after that with only one Secret Service man at that point.
Didn't Kelly write him a letter because she saw his name in the catalog list?
Yes, she did. Back then, we would stick the labels on catalogs ourselves when we were mailing out a few thousand.
Was this all like you're watching TV as kids, applying labels for a penny a label or something?
I wasn't born yet, but my sister.
Anyway, Kelly saw his name and his address in Plains, Georgia, and so she wrote a little note, stuck it in the catalog.
Asking him to dinner? Or
I don't know what she asked him, but he wrote a letter back, a handwritten little note thanking her and saying how much he liked the fact that we were here and convenient to him. And he was grateful for her reaching out to him.
That's incredible.
Very down to earth.
That's so cool. How old was she?
I would say about 6 or 7 at that point.
So she had a lot of gumption at a young age.
Oh, yeah.
Slipping a note into presidents.
Didn't want to miss the opportunity, I guess.
Yeah. So another thing that y'all do a lot of is you have basically every woodworking book.
Yes.
Like, honestly, every woodworking book. from, of course, Taunton Press, but Lost Art Press. If anyone in the Atlanta area is wanting to thumb through a woodworking book before they purchase, this is the place to go and purchase. So how does that work for you? Are you always just trying to find? Well, I guess there's only so many publishers these days. So,
well, we don't carry every woodworking book, and they turn over, but new books are coming out all the time.
Yeah.
The Tay-Frid books are still among our most popular.
I saw them over there, yeah.
And Taunton offers a lot of titles, and Lost Art Press seems to have a new title every week.
Yeah.
And there are a few others.
There's the more independent ones like Mortise and Tenon Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
We started selling their magazine right when they started. I think we met them at Benchcrafted, either at Lee Nielsen or Handworks. Mm-hmm. But when they first got started, we met Josh Klein and immediately developed a relationship with him and his family. And we love every time a new Mortise and Tenon magazine comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not many places you can go buy these off the shelf. So it's very cool to see them.
And that's another big part of our facade is right on North Highland. You walk into a library, basically.
Yeah.
With a sign that says "Read more books" on the ceiling.
One thing I've been really interested in is we had to move them all out of the way, but you've got all these kids' kits or whatever. Or, I mean, I think Mike and I will probably be doing these in the hotel room. But are you selling a lot of the?
That was actually a very big seller during the start of the pandemic.
Okay.
Kids were home from school. Parents needed something for them to do.
Yeah.
They're very easy kits for kids to figure out. I think they say age 8 and up on them.
There's a 7 and a 6 around. The Swing Bridge one up there. I need to find another box of that because my kid would love that. I'm going to get that for him.
Again, we're all about woodworking education, and the younger you are getting into woodworking, the better it is for later on when you're going to be coming in here and buying your own woodworking tools.
Yeah.
And then also just it's a great bonding experience between parents and their kids, like getting your kids in the shop with you. One of our popular selling tools is the Kids Woodworking Toolkit, which is very different than what you would find at Home Depot or just like Melissa and Doug, I think. But it's actual tools. Mm-hmm. It's actual tools that anybody any age would use in their shop, but it's specifically minded or built. It's a toolkit built for kids of good tools.
Mm-hmm.
What's in that kit?
I think I saw one up there.
Oh, it's right there.
So I see a coping saw, which my kids, one of the first things they picked up.
Oh, there's the little...
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So hammer, coping saw, safety glasses, combination square, hand drill, block plane, tape measure, cast iron bolt-on vise. That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's great. Rather than come up with sort of a kid style set, it's curated for kids. And I'm sure this leads to a lot of things that, okay, what can I make with this?
Exactly.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So back to education, do you see the classroom opening up again eventually?
Yeah, we've had a few false starts of planning it, and each time another variant of the COVID virus comes out, and so we back off and let's let things settle down. Situation seems to be changing soon. Everybody's getting it. Anyway, we're closely monitoring it, but 3 of our teachers are the older people, like around 70 or more, and we just want to take care of them and our customers as well. So we aim to do that. Well, we've been aiming to do it for a year, so we'll see how it goes.
But it'll happen eventually when the time is right.
That's sort of who we are. We taught our first classes, I think, in 1979 when we were in the building across the street, which is where that photo was taken. That was in the basement. We kind of built a little grandstand so that people would have unimpeded vision, and then when we moved across the street to here, in our warehouse, we took a portion of the warehouse and made it the seminar room. And then in 94, when we added on to the building, we have a dedicated 1,000 square foot room, which became cluttered with other things over the course of the pandemic. But it looks like it's starting to show signs of being ready to turn back into a bench room.
Who else is taught here? Am I right to believe that Maloof or I know Charles Brock has taught here, right?
Who?
Charles Brock.
Charles Brock has been here. Our TV man, the Highland Woodworker.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Dunbar was here.
Roy
Conover. Roy Underhill comes like every 3 years or so, it seems like. I'm probably leaving out a lot of people that have come here from a long ways away. And of course, when we have these special guest teachers from out of town, a lot of people come from all over the country. They'll fly to Atlanta in order to see Sam Maloof, for instance. It's been rewarding to be able to show people how to use the tools, how to get a blade sharp, which is usually the first obstacle that they have to overcome to begin enjoying.
That's what I was telling Mike on our walk over here.
So yeah, that's the most basic class. It was the first class we ever taught. I remember back in 1979. So yeah, we're in the 21st century now, so we need to get that seminar room operating again.
What was a Maloof class like? I would just assume it would be just like him running around, because I mean, watching him work. There was a video that Taunton did that we're going to be putting some up later this month.
Called Unsafe Practices on the Band Side.
I remember seeing that he would hold a
just at
an angle.
Yeah.
So when everybody else went to lunch, I said, I'm going to try that. And I stuck the piece in there just like he did. And it went, glad nobody was watching. No, he had a lot of assistance from Zach Etheridge was our person who sort of ran the seminar programs then, and he would when Sam would say, "No, where's my rasp?" Zach would run around and find it and bring it, because it was a very cluttered workbench. I guess you probably saw that in your video. But great artist, really a wonderful man.
He actually made a lot of really nice furniture other than chairs as well.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So have you ever thought of opening up other stores other than this one?
Oh, Molly just looked at you like,
like in Connecticut would be a really good place.
We've been asked that question by people in a number of different states. No, I think we'll always be a central location for the whole business. And fortunately, we had our first catalog in 1981. We've been mailing out 1 or 2 or 3 catalogs a year, every year since then, probably 100 different editions of it. One thing that makes it different, we have a hand-drawn cover every time.
Yeah.
We have the same artist who's been working on the cover, now also does the entire catalog. Michelle Belcher is her name, someone I met playing tennis back in the early 90s. And we've tried to make the catalog informative. And I meant to bring it with me to read here. Wooden Boat wrote an article about 3 or 4 different catalogs. And they had the statement in there that if you read the entire Highland hardware, probably then, Highland Woodworking catalog, you would learn more than you would learn in lots of books. So we pride ourselves on helping people become better woodworkers. And of course that helps our business, helps sustain our jobs, and lets people get the satisfaction out of doing woodworking.
Well, this is my second time here. I was talking to Chris beforehand. I told him that before I came to work at the magazine, I was living in Nashville, and my wife and I and my son was 1 at the time, decided, okay, we have to go on vacation, so we went to Tybee Island. And on the way back, I told my wife, I was like, I'm sorry, it is 5:00, but we have to drive through Georgia, or we have to drive through Atlanta. And she was like, why? And I was like, I have to go to Highland Hardware. I have to go. And she sat out in the parking lot with our kid who was asleep. And I ran in here for a few minutes. I think about a card scraper or something. But I just had to experience Highland Woodworking because it really is a destination. And when I came back through the doors today, I had the same feeling, the same like, and I saw Molly. I said, "This place is just as amazing as I remember." You know, it really is. It's the employees. You must really make sure that everybody puts everything into this place because it's hawk blades. You got the weird little Coons planes that I bought and reshaped for violin makers planes and stuff like that. It's just everything you can think of is in this store. I can't say that about pretty much anywhere else. I love this place.
No, I was late coming in from the airport and I thought, oh, do we need to do the podcast? And Ben said, no, you have time to walk around. You have to walk around this store. You really. So Molly gave me a tour and it's the same thing where as a woodworker, I said, this is like I'm in a dream, which it would go over the head of anybody not familiar with the craft. But I mean, every little thing, oh, there it is, oh, there it is, there it is. And it was just, I've been in many, many other woodworking stores, but not one which is this devoted and complete in terms of what you carry. So I feel like this is my store. Like,
yeah. Well, and I wonder if that's because you have such an online presence as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a destination. Like Atlanta is a destination in of itself. And when a lot of customers that are from out of town say that they were here for a conference, like IWF, for example, or just a work conference in general with a large conference center downtown. And they use it as an excuse to come to Highland Woodworking.
Yeah.
Before we go,
there's
one question you haven't asked yet.
What's that?
And maybe I just dodged it early on. Is how did we get into woodworking as a hardware store?
How did you get into woodworking as a hardware store?
Thank you for asking. But my last quarter,
very shy.
My last quarter at Georgia Tech, I was working part-time in a hardware store, and the company was King Hardware. One of the oldest hardware companies in Atlanta ever. They opened in 1882 downtown on 5 Points, the very center of the city. When I graduated and continued to work there part-time, the manager quit, and they made me manager at age 23. And they had sold the real estate that store was in, so it was closing, and they moved me to the Piedmont Road King Hardware store. And about this time was when Sharon was graduating from Georgia Tech. That's where we met. And so we were assigned to operate that store. Well, that store was one of the only places in the Southeast that sold the Shopsmith combination machine.
Yeah.
If there had not been a Shopsmith, there would be no Highland Woodworking or Highland Hardware.
Really?
We sold everything, but they had that machine. We learned how to demonstrate it to people so that we could sell 100 a year. That began to spread into a community of people. We put in hardwood lumber, and this was all still at King Hardware before we ever knew anything about a Highland store. We realized that if we start a new store, we're going to have woodworking in it as well. And so we did. We became an Inca dealer right away, buying from Garrett Wade. And by being a wholesale customer, they would also wholesale us some of their hand tools, their fine hand tools. And so from our earliest days, we had some really nice tools to sell. But if it had not been for Shopsmith, we would probably never have gone into woodworking.
Were you selling Shopsmith here too, or that stayed with King?
We found some gray market machines to sell.
Okay.
But that was when Shopsmith was starting to open their own stores, so they weren't opening any dealers at the time. But after the Inca tools and the Garrett Wade hand tools, We became a Makita dealer. We were the largest for a while there. Early in our time, we were the largest single store Makita dealer in the Southeast.
Well, and at the time, Makita made jointers and joiner planer combinations.
We sold lots of those planers and planer joiners, and they had a big bandsaw that we demonstrated at the World Woodworking Expo in Atlanta in 1980. That's what the IWF, that became IWF later on. Once they closed the Louisville show, it merged into Atlanta as IWF. So that was we began advertising in Fine Woodworking magazine. We ran ads every issue, selling Makita and I can't remember all that we sold. One of the more popular machines was the Makita water-cooled grinder. It was a horizontal wheel with a little tub that would empty onto the stone. And we learned that was originally for planer knives, planer and joiner knives. Had a big long tool rest. Well, we found a jig. It was called the Rima jig at the time. That was small like that would tighten down on a plane iron or a chisel. And so we were able to market the Makita 9820 as a hand tool sharpening jig.
I'm going to have to look in the archive for some of those old ads. That's always fun. You know, one thing that always shocks me about the old ads is the prices are the same. It's because equipment was expensive and it just keeps getting cheaper as, we think it's, and it is, but
yes,
woodworking in the 80s was even more expensive than it is now.
Well, I think it may have moved beyond that with this latest round of inflation that we've encountered with the pandemic and the supply chain and shortage of containers to move stuff around. But a Delta 14-inch bandsaw back then was about the same as it was selling for 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
$750.
Yeah.
I bought all my stuff early 80s. Yeah. And the planer, I had the Delta 13-inch Delta Rockwell planer, which preceded benchtop planers. And that was $1,600 or $1,800. So that was a huge investment at the time. Unisa, I think, was $2,000 at the time. So, yeah, you can still get a 10-inch table saw for less than that.
Yeah.
Imagine someone who into woodworking casually comes in. Most of these tools are not familiar to them. Are you doing a lot of educating just as the people are coming in and asking about something?
That's the benefit of having employees who've been here for 20, 25 years. They've heard all the questions and are just kind of delighted to get asked again to help somebody who doesn't know. And I'm sure we've started a lot of people on if not a career, at least a serious hobby of woodworking, because it's fascinating. And there was an opportunity to attend a class on a Saturday and learn how to sharpen a chisel or a plane, or turn a bowl on a lathe, or build a bookcase, a chair, a table.
And because we've become so focused on e-commerce while still having our retail store, and shopping in general has become more focused on e-commerce, we do have a bit of downtime as employees here waiting for the next customer to come in. But that also gives us time to learn a machine or use a new tool. Or as we were saying with Shaper, 3 guys love that machine now that work here. You can always find Steve doing something new on the Shaper that helps add to our displays.
Yeah.
Well, we've really been blessed with having staff members come here and enjoy being here, and we've got some real superstars in a lot of the different positions here that know a lot about woodworking, that know a lot about order fulfillment, that know about merchandising, and so I'm really happy to have such a wonderful crew of people that have come to work here and stuck around.
That says a lot that people have been here so long. It's in Taunton's the same way. It's like you've either been there 5 years or 30. You haven't been 30.
26.
Okay. But yeah, it says a lot about the company and the store and everything. So congratulations on going so long and having people stick with you the whole way. And
think we're at 45 years.
Next year will be the 45th birthday in May 15th.
Another
2023 will
generation
be 45.
already in place.
Yeah.
ready to take over. That's
Yeah.
good. So you're going to plan on being around for a while.
Hopefully so.
Good.
Good. Well, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming to visit Highland Woodworking.
Absolutely.
Hey, Shop Talk Live fans, take a deeper dive into woodworking topics when you join the Fine Woodworking Unlimited community. From in-depth project guides, step-by-step plans, tips, and techniques, you'll find everything you need to master your craft. Try Unlimited now and enjoy a 14-day free trial. Find out more at finewoodworking.com/members.
Vic, why do you keep moving?
It's interesting. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I go wherever the wind blows me. And the reason, to answer your question, is that when I got out of the military, when you leave the military, and that's the only thing you knew since the age of 18, it's really scary to come out into the real world, because in the military, everything's taken care of for you. Your health care, your food, your lodging, everything. And so all of a sudden you're out in this big bad world and you're trying to figure things out. And I remember a sergeant who got out before me. He came back before I left and he said, "Listen, Vic," he said, don't worry about out there. He said, there is so much opportunity out there that if you just keep your eyes open and don't hem yourself into like one specific direction or another, he said, you will never, ever be without, work and money. And so that's just something that I've always kind of kept in the back of my mind. In fact, my latest tattoo is of a ship, because the wind just blows me. And I go wherever the wind takes me, and when opportunities come up, I take them. And so this house was great. Had the fantastic standalone shop, which is really what we were looking for at the time. But what happened is that we realized that we have like a massive house with a lot of property and a lot of upkeep and like all of these sorts of things. And we're in sort of like this area has started since COVID, because it's relatively close to Toronto, and that's where like 85% of Canadians are. Because of COVID, people were able to work from home.
Yeah.
And then now these towns that are closer, to that area end up getting sort of overtaken. And we just got fed up with traffic and the hustle and all of that other stuff. So we're just like, we want to go to a smaller town. So,
but you're downsizing a shop. Like,
I am.
I don't know. It's kind of been like your thing. You work wherever you need to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't care about the size per se. I've enjoyed this shop. Is about 380 square feet. This was my biggest shop to date. But I've worked in lots of single car garages, which is what I'm moving back into.
Yeah. Okay. So how many square feet are you going to now?
So it's 11 by 25. So that's not
many.
250, 260
okay
ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not so you're losing 100 square feet.
Yeah.
So it isn't tragic.
No, not by any stretch. And I mean, and again, like if I had to move into a condominium building tomorrow, right, I would just make sure that there was a spare bedroom that I could put a workbench in and some hand tools and, whatever. I would just carry on building things and showing people, Yeah. So for me, it's interesting. I think a lot of times we're used to seeing people like upsize their shop when they move.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm doing it the other way. I'm downsizing the shop. And so like a lot of things are starting to disappear from in here, right? Because I don't need them or want them in the smaller shop.
And that is what I thought would be the most interesting aspect of this conversation.
Right.
Now you are well on record as a no table saw dude. Mm-hmm. Don't want one, don't need one.
Yeah.
What else is there left to get rid of?
Oh God, there's lots to get rid of. So I have a lathe.
Yeah.
Just a small sort of meaty style lathe that I would love to do some things on, but I never do. And so I think it's going. I think that's gonna end up hitting the bricks.
I just put mine in. I just put mine in storage.
Well, I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to put it in storage and then not like, I don't want to sell it because it's like, it's a decent lathe and like there's, and I have the tools and the chucks and all that other stuff. But I don't use it very often. And so I'm not going to take up dedicated space in the shop for that.
Yeah.
But I ended up donating my Panta router to Rosewood Studio because the Panta router is a fantastic tool. And I mean, I would use it and I would like tweak it all out. And then like the joinery you get from it is just bananas, right?
Yeah.
Like it's super accurate. It works really, really well. But I have other tools that can achieve, the mortise and tenon joint, right? I will go back to using a router and my bandsaw, right, for doing that kind of work. Drill press and bandsaw. So I was trying to look at the tools and seeing where there was any duplicity, right? And the Panta router was one of those things that, it was doing jobs that I already had tools, and I mean the bandsaw. I mean, like that's the, that's for me. That's the kingpin tool. I mean,
so that stays.
Oh my goodness, yes.
What about your MFT table?
Yes, MFT table stays.
Okay.
Because, and in fact, this is going to be controversial. I'm going to be replacing my workbench with a second MFT style table.
All right, I need to end the recording here.
Nice to see everyone.
What? So MFT style, define.
Not MFT table, because if anybody owns an MFT table, they know that if you lean on it laterally, it like goes all over the place and it's not very sturdy.
It's not what it's meant for.
Right. Yes. And so there's a company in the UK called UJK that makes some skirting boards, for lack of a better term, that you assemble and build onto a wooden base, just like a regular workbench, and then that whole thing receives an MFT top. And so the rails on the side are not extruded aluminum. They're not anything like what you would typically get from the MFT. I think they're better because you have the ability, there are holes in the side of the apron so that you can use the clamps and you can use so you don't need to use a vise, which I don't usually use a vise on my bench anyway. But the idea is that I will have two of these units. I can put them together if I need like a longer surface, or I can just work on one and do its thing. So one will basically be set up to be used in conjunction with power tools. And the other one that's a lot more sturdy. And a friend of mine's got one of these. I helped her build it, and it is super stable. So I started thinking, okay, well, the traditional workbench, right? Like, everybody like wants the, the Roubeau or the Nicholson or whatever 100 other benches have been written about. But really, when you look at modern clamping and modern work holding and all that other stuff, like using one of those rail clamps, either in a hole, in a rail, or in a groove that you put in with a router bit, I mean, now you have one style of holding tool that can do like a whole pile of stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, and I know as soon as I guess we're talking about it now, but as soon as I start talking about how I'm going to get rid of a sort of quote unquote traditional workbench and work with something a little bit more modern, there's going to be a hue and cry, I'm sure, but just know that I don't care. I'm just kidding. I like getting in discussions with people about it and stuff like that. But in the end, it really boils down to like how you want to work and this is something I want to try.
Well, okay, so I'm not downsizing, but
Okay,
I've been
good.
trying to make room. I've been looking at my machines and saying that takes up more space than it's worth in my shop right now. So
Right.
I sold my Powermatic joiner, my big PM60.
Yep.
And like the moment I even mentioned it, people were like, "You're going to regret that." And it's like, if I do, I do. I know what's going on in my world right now, and I don't think I'm going to regret it. If I did, wouldn't sell it unless I needed to. And so I downsized to like one of those little, this one's a cut tech, and there's other ones, one of those little 8-inch wide joiners. It's like a little benchtop joiner. And I'm just still messing with it now. I'm doing a little bit of changes to a couple of things, and I've been really enjoying it. I don't joint very long boards, so I didn't need it.
Right.
I have also just decided that, the big Unisaw, it was taking up too much room. I got the Inca. I've always wanted an Inca. I've been looking at my shop as, okay, how do I make this a more comfortable place to spend 10 hours a day? Because I do. So, but when I went to get this cut tech, the guy opened up, I bought it off Marketplace or something. The guy opened up his garage door, and immediately I said, "Oh, that's why he's selling this." And he was in the middle of a big old 8-foot split top Roubeau build. And I immediately was like, "Yep, can't make that with this little joiner. That's it."
No.
And it all of a sudden hit me that so many people tool up for one build, for a workbench.
Or the threat of one build.
Okay, there you go too. So, and that's totally fine. I totally get that. And I would have absolutely agreed with that for the first 10 years of my woodworking existence. And now I know what I kind of spend my time building, and I know what I'll probably spend my time building for a good long while. And it ain't going to be an 8-foot Roubeau.
No.
I don't need a PM60 anymore.
No.
So, yeah, I've been absolutely downsizing and sitting there and saying, I'm never going to make a queen size bed. I made one. And it's done. I have no desire to ever make another bed again. I don't need the tooling for that.
Right.
So whenever people gear up and they're buying machinery, I think they try and cover every possible base. But you know what you're going to be doing. So when you get rid of a tool, it's a pretty educated decision.
Right. I wouldn't just get rid of things willy-nilly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you're right. People just want to, they want the extra long beds on a jointer. And it's like, well, I mean, I have a fairly small bedded jointer with the Rikon, and I've never maxed it out, and when you consider that, a jointing plane, hand plane, is 24 inches long, what are we doing?
Well, and also, if you have a hand plane, the one time every 10 years you need to joint a really long board, it's going to take a while. It's not going to be a real fun task, but you can probably get it done.
The reality is that you don't need a massive long set of tables in order to joint even a long board.
Yeah.
Because if you can snap a chalk line on that board that you're trying to straighten and sort of work it out in pieces so that you can get it, you know what I mean? I like using a portable power planer, right? Like a handheld, just
Here we go again. Just to get the
big
boat.
stuff off.
You're just
get the
saying
big
stuff to be
off.
controversial, man.
No, it's not true. It's just like use the tool that makes the most amount of sense. You
No,
know, like
I'm totally-
everybody ganged up on Christian Bexford in that issue of the magazine where he turned a chest of drawers on its back and pulled out the belt sander.
He'll do
And
it
everyone's
again.
like, what kind of crap is that? And it's like, yeah, that makes total sense. You know
He'll
what
do
I
it
mean?
again.
Like,
He'll do the whole damn thing. He doesn't care.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it makes sense. And I mean,
It
it's
works
like,
for him.
you know, you can work however you want to work. And I mean, like, how else would you flatten all of that and get it all nice and flush, right? Like what, just measure better? Like, give me a break. Like, so I don't know. I find that, you know, I like doing it a certain way, and Ben, you like doing things a certain way, and Pekovich does things a different way, and it's like, who cares? Like, as long as we're getting the work done, you know.
Get
so
the
I
work
think
done.
there's-
Have fun. Be safe.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like if you can't tool up with tool X or tool Y, that doesn't mean that you're no longer able to woodwork. I mean, you're just, like I said earlier, if all I had was a spare bedroom in a condominium building, I'd still be making stuff. It'd be smaller stuff, but I'd be making it.
So what else? I mean, it kind of sounds like those are the biggest things that you're getting rid of, right?
Yeah.
Where you getting the rest of that 100 square feet?
Well, storage. So that's the critical difference as I look around the shop here, because you've got room to sort of spread out, right? You tend to spread out. And like I have tools, like, so for example, my jointer planer is sitting on your typical open metal stand, right?
Okay.
Well, what if you build a low cabinet on wheels that has 3 or 4 drawers in it? And then now all of a sudden that space that's already being taken up is now being used for something more effective.
Yep.
Right? All of my hand planes and stuff are on this. I made this little, not everybody can see it, but it's just basically a workbench made out of 2x12. And it's only as wide as a 2x12, kind of like a planing bench, if you will.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
all my hand tools are all kind of strewn onto that. And it's like, well, I'm going to build something that goes underneath my main bench. And that's where I'm going to store things. So when you look around your shop, you start to realize that if you have a big shop or a bigger shop, you end up sort of spreading out and things are all over the place. And then, like, I realized the other day, I've got like 6 engineer squares. And I really only use 2.
Yeah.
I use the smallest one and I use the biggest one.
Yeah.
All the other ones probably came in a kit, you know? So it's like, do I need all of these? Probably not,
Yeah.
you know? So then you start to like look at things very, very sort of, I looked at things and thought, do I use this? How much dust is on it? That's a good indicator, right? If there's a ton of dust on it, I probably don't use it. I've got far too many Japanese saws. And so I compare those back. So it's just little things like that, you know, that I think are really going to make the big difference in that, like reducing to 100 square feet. The other thing that I'm looking at doing is making like sort of surfaces that you can sort of share, right? So for example, I have the Bosch 12-inch slider, you know, the one with the cool articulating knuckles. And that, as far as I'm concerned, that's like the best chop saw I ever made, right? Like it is super accurate. I do finish cuts with it and it works really, really well, which is part of the reason why I got rid of my table saw, because otherwise that was just a cross-cut machine is all it was. So I want its work surface to become flush with my MFT.
Okay.
Right? Because then what I can do is I can put a board on there and then the rest of the board is on the MFT and then I can put a little stop on the MFT and then I can do repeatable cuts that way. I can do all that kind of stuff. Right? So it's like getting tool surfaces to sort of line up so that you can use them for, you know, multiple tasks.
So, all right. So you're going to get rid of some storage. You need to get rid of some tools. You have like a layout worked out. You've been in the shop, right?
Oh yeah, yep. And in fact, so we have possession of the house right now, and we're taking like 3 weeks of bridging to be able to like get things sorted out, do some painting, do that kind of stuff. But one of the bigger things too is that I had electricians come in and bid on the job because I need, there's one circuit in the garage. There's 3 lights and 4 outlets, and they're all on the same circuit, and they're 15 amps. And so it's like, yep, that's nice. We need some more. So I'm going to put a 60 amp. I'll get to the right one in a second. A 60 amp pony panel in the garage, and then I'm going to have like the lights are already on a separate thing, so that's good. And then my new dust collector is a 220 volt, so that's going to be the only 220 line in the shop. Everything else is running off of 120 volt 20 amp circuits.
But you're gonna have enough to add another 220 if you ever need, right? If
I need it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I don't anticipate it because everything I've got, like I'm not going to upgrade anything in the near future. So, I mean, a lot of my tools can be converted. Mm-hmm. So I suppose, from a consumption point of view, it would be better to convert it, but I just don't have the time to worry about that right now. So, so what I'm doing is I've got 2 main walls. So I'm going to have, on one wall, I'm going to have 2 circuits. One circuit will be the top of all the plugs, and the second circuit will be the bottom of all the plugs.
Okay.
So then you can go vacuum router into one outlet, and you have no worries about tripping anything or anything like that. And then another couple of circuits on the other side. And then my bandsaw is really the only thing that's going to be floating in the center. Okay. So I'm going to put a ceiling mounted one up there so that I can just plug it in up there and be done with it.
Your dust collector's not going to be next to the bandsaw?
Well, the dust collector is actually wall mounted.
Oh. Okay.
So it's there's a company in the UK called Record Power, and they make some incredible dust collection machines. And so there's a dealer here in Canada that brings them in, and so I went and met with them and like checked out the suction on the different machines, and they're really cool because they have like 2 or 3 separate motors. And so you can like turn on however many motors you need. And the sound is crazy. It's like, I don't know, something stupid like, I don't know, I want to say like 60 decibels or something like that. Wow. It's like really quiet.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it mounts to the wall, but with a 10-foot hose, I can reach anything I want. Right, because my jointer and planer are all in one machine, so that's only one port. And then the only other thing I use it for is the bandsaw. Oh, and the thickness sander. But all the hand power tools run off of an MF or a Festool vacuum. Mm-hmm. So, like that, I'm only really using that dust collector for 3 machines.
Cool.
And I'm not likely to use them all at the same time. No. Due to only having 2 arms.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like you got a pretty good game plan. So good luck. When's the move happening? Like when you move in shop stuff?
Yeah, so September 20th, I think, is when we make the move.
All right. It's coming up.
So yeah, I just chose with the electrical contractor that I want to work with and getting all of that started and sorted out, and yeah.
Good luck.
Then it's going to be going through this place and being judicious and figure out what I'm going to keep and what I'm not going to keep. And
are you going to build the cabinets before you move?
I probably won't have the time.
Okay.
Just because there's a couple other things that are, of course, with me, there's always 100 things going on at once. And so,
well, and you're moving your house as well, so it's not,
right.
Like that's not a small undertaking.
And then, and like those cabinets would likely be, like I'd like to do them out of Baltic birch, but I may end up just doing them. It's funny how like up here anyway, cabinet grade plywood that you would make like built-ins and stuff from is cheaper than Baltic birch.
Oh yeah.
So like I can get like walnut cabinet grade plywood for cheaper than
pre-finished,
Baltic birch.
probably. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So oddly enough, that's probably what it's going to be built out of. And softwood plywood is stupid expensive right now too. So like even using like good one side fir or whatever is like, it's about the same price as walnut. So I'm like, well, these are going to be the nicest rolling tool cabinets on the planet.
Styling guy, styling cabinets.
That's it.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thanks again to the crew at Highland Woodworking for having us. They have an incredible store. I picked up a few things while I was there, and if I'm honest, I'm about to buy some more stuff for the Fine Woodworking shop right now. Thanks to Vic. It's always a blast having Vic on. And send us your questions, your comments, your conversation starters. Send them into shoptalk@taunton.com. If you're watching on YouTube, click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening.
Who needs memes when we've got two idiots like you and I?